Hi everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look at the astrological weather report for the week of June 12th through the 18th, and it's a week with Saturn energy this week, really taking some center stage and bringing in some reality checks to us. And then we've got the new moon next weekend in Gemini at about 27 degrees. So once again, and that's square Neptune, that new moon. So once again, at a critical degree was what I was going to say, and also square Neptune, but ruled by Mercury. So get into all that. But first, a little bit of business. On the Astrological Winds channel is a video blog that I do every week on YouTube, and it's looking at the astrological weather forecast for the week in general for all of us in the world. So you can just apply, these interpretations to you in your personal life, in your world, and what's going on with your world, and also see it happening out in society in the different places that we're all from. And, being from the United States, obviously I see that and refer to it a lot about that. But remember, if you're new to astrology, don't know astrology terms well, you just want to focus on the interpretations in between the astrological terms and not get lost on, my astrological terms, because the energy is what's important, and the knowledge of having that energy this week so that you can work with it and get more congruent, more in harmony with the energy of the week and work with it. Like I said, it is a free blog and it is on YouTube. So if you're a YouTube follower, or you have a YouTube account, I should say, become a follower, please, if you like the blog, and then turn on your notifications and you'll know when it's posted every week. Also have it on Instagram, so you just look up Astrological Winds channel, become a follower there. I post the link there also, and sometimes some extra stuff. And even more importantly, it's on podcasts too, guys. It's available on all kinds of podcasts, so you don't need to do the YouTube thing if you don't want to, and it's usually just me talking to the camera anyway, so really the auditory experience is what's important. So do the podcast can free you up a lot of times to do other things, or listen to the blog when you're doing other things. And as a free service, I would love for a little repayment if you could pass the link on to somebody else that you think might be interested in it. The followers keep growing, the amount of people checking it out keeps growing, and that's the way it's been doing that, in a very organic way. You guys help me out, and hopefully for a little repayment. And if you ever want to give a monetary donation, you're welcome to do that too. My Venmo handle is at, the symbol at Matthew with a capital M hyphen Lawton, Lauten. And the best way you can support me is I am a professional astrologer. I've been doing readings for over 20 years after 7 years of formal training. So any kind of reading, especially your natal chart and, what I call your predictive work every year around your birthday, getting a look at the next year, get in touch with me. I do all kinds of other astrological charts too. So I'll give more details at the end, but the best way to get in touch with me about that stuff is mattHue823 That's my email, mattHue823 Okay, like I said, it's kind of a Saturn week. And if you remember last week, I talked about the monthly stuff too. And this is the week that Saturn actually goes retrograde. So it's literally pretty much standing still in the sky from the perspective of Earth anyway. And already that brings a lot of focus and energy into Saturn. But we also have Venus and Mercury both getting tough aspects to Saturn this week also. So a week where reality is what we're going to really have to deal with, just really having to, just deal with the situations that are going on around us in practical ways. And it starts right today, or tomorrow, I should say. Is it tomorrow? In when we have Venus quincunxing Saturn, and it is tomorrow. Actually, I'm sorry, the exactness is tomorrow. It will be in effect for today, tomorrow, and Wednesday mainly, with Venus moving about a degree a day. So Venus quincunx Saturn it's a tricky kind of awkward kind of aspect in the sense that Venus is about seeking love on many levels, and we do that through relationships, and when Venus is quincunx Saturn, we can kind of get into this energy of feeling like we have to give something to get the love we want, that we have to perform some kind of duty, meet some kind of standard, answer to some kind of authority, or through our loved ones, through our relationships. So it can kind of feel a little like stagnating on that way, and it distances us inside. It makes us kind of cool and reserved, and we quiet down inside, and we almost are feeling like we have to be almost victimized or play the martyr to get the love that we want, so it really has a way of chilling our emotions down on that level and cooling us off on that level. It is, very disciplined energy. And when you think about that in relation to the other things that Venus rules, money and creativity, that's where it can be a bit useful. And it can make us thrifty and conservative with our money, and wanting to make sure that we're spending it well, that we're not using it in some kind of frivolous way, is a good way to say it. And also can, apply some discipline into our creativity, but once again, it really, the relationship thing is difficult. It can really, a lot of times comes up with family type issues too, with when Venus is quincunx Saturn. It's almost like family are where we're having to meet obligations and duties that somehow, we're just not feeling that inside, that we're getting back, something that's worthy, and it can have us fall kind of into a judgmental kind of mind about our relationships and others, and the expectations that we have of them and stuff. So like I said, it really kind of quiets us down and kind of brings us inside. We cap our emotions. And then on Thursday, Mercury squares Saturn. And that shows the same thing with our intellect and mind, that we can get into Mercury square Saturn can get into very disciplined thinking. So in many ways, it can be a useful tool when you're needing to do detailed intellectual work, where you're correcting mistakes, like fine combing things, going over plans in a very detailed manner to make sure there's no flaws within them, then this can be a very useful transit. But once again, Mercury square Saturn's effect on the mind is to see the negative side, to see the flaws, to see the shadow of things, to see where things are wrong. So it's almost like it gives us almost like a glass half empty kind of attitude about things, and it is very difficult on in our communications with others too. There can be things that we just don't agree on, and it's not able to be worked out now. It's the kind of things that where just causes delays, and it could even be with just the reality of what's going on. That's Saturn, the reality of the situations that are going on that are causing that kind of energy, but it really brings us into like this thing of like once again keeping our thoughts mainly to ourselves, and a lot of them are very judgmental, or critical. Like it almost feels like others around us or situations around us are not appealing to our standards, to the way we would want to do things. And since it seems like it's difficult to communicate that, we kind of once again shut down a lot of our thoughts and they stay more internal. But it is good for like creating like detailed plans on that mental level. You just might not be able to like implement those plans yet. And it is, like I said right in the beginning, an excellent transit for doing just that kind of monotonous mental effort type work, intellectual effort type, like, something like, even coding or something that, you really need to be focused and disciplined on, and really just shutting down and not allowing emotions too much to dictate what's going on. So that's some of our Saturn journey this week. And Saturn then goes retrograde on the weekend. Now, I talked about it in detail last week. Retrograde in Pisces, and let's see, it's at 7 degrees, 713 is exactly where the retrograde point is, and it will stay retrograde until November 5th, okay? And where it'll be right back at about 1 degree of Pisces, 0:31 minutes. So, like I said last week, this is really about how ideals, Saturn being a societal planet, how ideals are like kind of divided in society right now. And that is what's causing things to slow down and making things that, but even in ourselves, once again, this will be a 4.5 month period where we can look at, the ideals, that our own ideals, and how they may be blocking us or restricting us somehow from what we're really trying to bring into society. But it's interesting, like, like I said, I'm not going to go back into detail with it. You can go back to last week's blog. But one thing that is interesting about it to me is that, I was talking about how Saturn represents judicial and authority in society. So like, judicial, law and order, authority in the sense of executive, even legislative bodies. So, and you can see how all three of those bodies in the United States are all already, getting a dose of this Saturn slowdown, and how in Pisces their own ideals are what's blocking the ability to influence reality and change much. We have the courts, which, now many people see are also influenced by the political leanings of those individuals that are the judges in those courts. And then, so they're, here we have this week, a surprising ruling for people who thought the courts would rule in allowing gerrymandering to be more specific and allow state legislators to redraw lines and, create, stronger power bases. And they were like, no. So once again, a very surprising thing that comes, and people unhappy, half the people unhappy with that decision. And then you can see in the legislature, even within the Republican Party, there's this massive split where, it doesn't seem like the Speaker of the House can get his own party together even. So once again, their own ideals, these two different ways of doing Republican Party, are slowing down that party from being out. And then they also, like in the executive branch, you have the leader on the same thing on the Republican side, who has now been hit with all these charges from things he did in the past, retrograde past, that, are coming up now, that he's got to, paid the piper, so to speak, coming, to terms with that. So this is kind of like examples of this energy we'll be seeing for the next 4.5, 5 months. And you can apply that to your own life too. How are your values stopping you from making the corrections in your practical world reality that you need to make it better? That's what that Saturn retrograde is going to be asking us for the next 4 or 5 months. All right. So there is a real sweet aspect on Saturday. Mercury is sextiling Venus. And this is a very light-hearted kind of energy, especially with Gemini and Leo, the two signs that the two planets are in. This is going to be a great weekend to go out and, take like a mini vacation or go to some event, expose yourself, to something, different where you're getting new info, new knowledge and stuff. But it's just great for having fun, for enjoying life, for being with your friends, for checking out artistic stuff, for enjoying nature, all those things. So just a beautiful little aspect to have smack dead in the middle of next weekend. Just a great weekend for a weekend getaway, basically. And then we have the new moon, which is like late Saturday, early Sunday. So smack dead in the middle of the weekend. So the new moon at 27 degrees Gemini, and it is square Neptune. And it is ruled by Mercury, which we just talked about is squaring Saturn this week, and this beautiful sextile with Venus. So there's some good balance there. Now, remember, new moons are always a charger, right? They charge us up to want to do something new and different. So we want to look where your 27 degrees of Gemini is in your chart, and that's going to be the house. That's going to be the area, whatever that house represents. Like say it's the 4th house, then there's something new going on with your home or family or land or something like that, so that you're going to get charged up for. So there's a lot of energy in a new moon, and it's a great time to plant seeds. And then this one at the critical degree again of 27 degrees, which is saying, have you learned your lessons about Gemini energy? Like, have you learned that, you can cast this very wide net? Gemini collects information almost like a sea trawler. That's a good analogy. Like, it's this miles wide net, and it collects all kinds of stuff. They pull in that net, and there's, some of the fish you want and a lot of other stuff you don't want. Probably a lot of plastic these days in the net, but like so the thing is with Gemini, it's casting this long net. And I think when you talk about that with the critical degree, what it's asking us is, have you been able to discern yet what is actually important and what's not when you're going out and collecting information? So it's asking us that, is there a new way we can do this? Can we maybe take out some of the static so that we can focus more in on the message that we're trying to get? This is kind of an old radio, or CB, trying to tune in exactly through all the noise that surrounds us, because there's so much that vies for our attention all the time. And Gemini being a very intellectual sign, and the Western mind being a very intellectually driven mind for the last few thousand years, they can really, it can be a lot of overstimulation that can come on. So I think this 27th degree, critical one is saying, hey, have you figured out a good way of editing or finding what's really useful in this information that you're always collecting? And if not, you're going to probably continue to, be jammed up inside a lot and confused and anxious, all those things that Gemini can get. It gets a very acute mind, but all that stimulation is nervous, edgy energy too, and it has us bouncing from one thing to another if we're not processing or integrating it well. So very interesting on that level. But remember, that's what this new moon wants. The moon in Gemini feels secure emotionally when it is collecting information. It is a very curious mind, and it is not emotionally deep. It will avoid emotional depth and people or situations that trigger that in us. It is much rather we go around and collect things, a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. The other important thing in that equation for Gemini moon is to actually communicate that information. The communication is mainly for ourselves, though. It's mainly so we can bounce it off of other people and almost hear ourselves, and maybe get some of the reaction of others is taken into, so we can initially get an idea of whether our ideas or thoughts are actually of some value or not. But that is a key part to Gemini 2 moon, is to wanting to communicate stuff, because that's how it's integrating and processing the stuff. It's like by bouncing it off the other. It's a twin sign. It needs that duality, So yeah, so a very, and Gemini moon, once again, like I was talking about how Mercury sextile Venus is great for travel. It's good for travel too. So really excellent weekend for doing trips, but like collecting that info, processing the info, not wanting a very, very deep connection, but also, what is too much, what is like getting us edgy, but it gives us a very acute, sharp mind, a great time to learn more, bring more into our experience base, and especially in local areas. Now, the square to Neptune is just a completely opposite energy of the acute Gemini intellectual energy. The square to Neptune just completely waters down a lot of that acute energy, and I think the way this is going to play in, especially at the 27th degree, is there's so much information that it's confusing. And that all of a sudden we feel lost inside or overwhelmed emotionally by the amount of stuff coming at us, and we do, Neptune gives us this idealistic way of looking at things and wanting things to happen that way, but it's not based in a strong reality, and so it can be a little bit disenchanting. But I think there's a lot of, this can bring in a lot of confusion into the mind, because it's not, like I said, so many ideas, a lot of them appealing to our ideals, but a lot of them not really sticking very well. And then when that happens, we kind of run down an area of where we're trying to escape reality in many different ways, so this is going to be very challenging to the acuteness of the Mercury in Gemini and wanting to try to get things going. And part of the thing with Neptune too is it brings up subconscious stuff to the mind, the mind is being influenced by subconscious energy from the past, and a lot of that built an ideal that may not be possible to live up to. And yet Gemini is still seeking ways to do that and bringing in more and more, and it's becoming more and more confusing. And what ends up happening is when we see that reality is not matching in our mind, then we want to kind of escape. We need to find a place to run away to. We may, indulge in whatever our favorite ways of addiction are, or victimhood, or things like that, so, it can undermine a lot of our confidence and stuff. Now, the thing that's kind of a little bit cool about this one, though, to me, is there is the balance that the Saturn brings back in with the square to Mercury. Mercury is the ruler of this new moon because it's in Gemini. And so that Saturn that I was talking about earlier in the blog here, square Saturn, can bring some of that like detailed energy into those ideas and be like, no, this isn't going to work. This isn't going to work. Oh, look at the flaws in this. No, this is a mistake. No, this is going to lead you down the wrong path. So there can be some help here with Saturn to bring balance back to Neptune and not get us so disenchanted because the static and the information is so overwhelming that we can't really figure out what's real for us and what's not. And I think the Mercury sextiling the Venus will help there too, because it'll help us kind of like take a little bit of the edge off of like maybe being worked up. Gemini energy, when it gets worked up, it gets really nervous and edgy and, still wants to collect info, but it gets pushy and kind of energy like that. So I think the square to Saturn's going to help bring it back, and ground it a little bit and not allow the, completely Neptune to completely, take away all our reality of that and all this information that we have and want and are trying to discern what's real for us and get so disenchanted. I think, Saturn square to Mercury is going to help us go through and comb through a lot of that stuff. So remember, the thing you want to do with the new moon is to look once again at where 27 degrees Gemini is in your chart. And that will be the area of life where you'll be affected the most, the house that degree falls in. And then any planets or points that are like 26, 27, 28 degrees that are going to be aspected by this new moon. So that means they will also influence it. And as I said before, if anyone needs a new moon reading, that's something quick that I can do, relatively inexpensive for sure, and something that just get in touch with me again. So yeah, that's what I got for this week. I think it's one of these weeks where we are going to get a little bit of a reality check. I think it might have us inside a lot, especially the beginning of the week, and really assessing things and maybe kind of feeling a little bit glass half empty, gloomy, a little bit down on some relationships, but at the same time being able to use that energy to focus through and go through a lot of stuff in detail. And then we get to the weekend, and like I said, I really think it's a great weekend to go out and have some fun, expose yourself. And then that new moon, it's going to be tricky. There's going to be a lot of information being thrown at us. Can you figure out a new way to discern what's important, I think, is the big thing about this new moon. And that way kind of maybe be able to align some of those ideals that you have with reality, integrate them with reality. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. It is a video blog that I do weekly on the astrological weather for the whole world, which you can apply to yourself, to your friends, family, to your society, culture, country, to the whole planet, to all of us as humans together. And, it's a free service. And if you can now pass the link on to somebody else, I'd really appreciate it. Remember, it's available also on all kinds of podcasts. So all you got to do is look up Astrological Winds channel on your favorite podcast. If you don't see it on that one, try another one. I know there's like 20 of them that pick it up. Also is available on Instagram. If you have an Instagram account, look up Astrological Winds channel and become a follower. And sometimes I post extra stuff during the week on Instagram too. For Instagram followers, they're usually just, they're not audio or video, just some comments here and there on certain days. Also, post a link on my Facebook account. It is a private account, so you have to friend me first. That's Matthew with 2 T's, Lawton, Lauten. So do that, and that's what I use Facebook for mainly. And the best other way that you guys can support me is I'm a professional astrologer, and been doing charts for over 20 years. I've done many charts, and I would love to do yours. Your natal chart you carry with you all the time, from the day you're born to the day you die. If you don't understand the energies working, or if you don't understand them well, then you could be missing a lot of things about that would bring in more self-fulfillment, more self-empowerment. No matter where you go on this planet, you take that chart with you. You can't change your environment and expect to change if you don't know that. And if you've had reading done by a computer, or someone who knows a little bit about astrology, or has read a book, or you've even read a book, it's not the same as getting it done by a professional astrologer. It's a much more holistic, whole experience. We're all doing what we're supposed to do on this planet, right? And I can tell you, that is not the same. So when you're ready for that, drop me an email, or find another professional astrologer and get that done. And then every year around your birthday, I highly recommend getting a predictive reading for the next year, so that you know what is in store for you in the coming year, and the issues that you're going to be dealing with. And then once again, with that knowledge, you can have power and fulfillment over directing how you want the energy in your life to work, so you're not feeling like a ton of bricks hit you unexpectedly, say. And for those who have had their natal chart done and understand it well, fixed star readings are another level of depth that you might be interested in, really getting deep down in our soul purpose. Also, relocation. A lot of people, astrocartography, you're looking for different places to live, or where your power spots for certain planets are on Earth. That's a chart that can be done. If you have a child, and children's charts, how to relate to your child better, so that you can really get a better communication and understanding going. And then also looking at the first 20 years of their life and the most main events that'll be happening. Relationships. If you're in a new relationship, you're looking to see why, how you got together, or if you're in an older relationship and want to see, the sub personalities and energies and what they're developing into as a separate entity of the two people in it. I recommend doing that. Election charts, if you're getting married, starting a new business, anything really important that you want to tip the energy in your favor for success, we can set up the best day and time to start something. Horary, if you have some burning emotional question you can't get an answer to, a lot of times we can run a chart. Also have beginners classes available, and also if you have a group that needs a lecture, class, workshop, mini readings, any entertainment, all these things. Best way to get me these days is through my email, and that's mattHue823@gmail.com. That's mattHue823@gmail.com. You can also leave comments in the comments section on YouTube or the podcast, but remember, there's a lot of information out there. It's better to just directly contact me. All right, this is Matt Lawton. Next week is the solstice. The sun going into Cancer, and the longest days of the year in the northern hemisphere. So may have a look at that solstice chart. If there's not a lot other stuff going on, maybe just do it right in the blog. And if not, I may do a separate blog on just looking at the solstice chart for Washington, D.C. But I don't think there's a real lot going on next week, so we might be able to just get that right in with the regular blog. All right, until next week, use that new moon's energy, go out and have some fun, and discern what the important information is for you.